But, an interesting thing that got brought up, Alexis, shifting gears ever so slightly, was the concept of playing games. Obviously, we saw the NBA adopt that. Bruce Boudreau was asked that yesterday, and he joked, as Bruce tends to do, yeah, we'd love to have the play-in game this year because then we'd actually have a shot. I mean, the idea of the play-in game is obviously expanding the playoffs to include more teams. Would you like the NHL to adopt a thing? I don't even know if there's been real level discussions of this, don't get me wrong, but I mean, do you think that would benefit the NHL fan base, NHL teams? What are your thoughts there?
I have a really hard time with this one because I've seen this has been a hot topic on Twitter this week about people taking their stance on if they want play-in games in the NHL or not. I think if you look at it from the positive side, that means more hockey, more opportunity for some teams to make it into the playoffs, and some of those borderline teams who, like the Vancouver Canucks, who've had a really good turner. If they would have been playing as good as they played in the second half of the season as they did in the first, they would for sure be a playoff team. So it gives a team like that a chance who maybe didn't have the hottest start, or maybe had some injuries or something, a chance to get an opportunity in the playoffs. On the flip side of that, I think, hey, the best teams make it. If you can't get into one of those 8 seeds, you don't deserve to be there. You could take that stance as well, that, if you're really that good of a team, you'd have been playing good all season. And if you can't put together a whole season's worth of success, you don't deserve an extra opportunity to try to get into the playoffs. So I think there's plus and minuses to it for sure. It definitely allows more fans to get some of that playoff excitement, especially some of those teams who aren't perennial playoff teams. So I think that's great. I mean, you love giving fans more opportunities to watch their team play, and that, it brings in more opportunity for games and more money for the league and all kinds of stuff. So pros and cons. I don't know if I like it. I'm also really hard on accepting change. I hated when they changed the playoff format from 1 through 8 to what they have now. So I don't know.
You hate it when they changed the divisions.
Yeah, so I hate it when they changed the divisions. Hashtag bring back the Northwest Division. Please sign my petition. So I would probably lean towards the side of not wanting it, but I would understand why the NHL would maybe want to do that if they choose to do it in the future. Do you have a hard stance on it, Jesse?
You know what? I kind of like it just because it could really mix things up, right? It would be very, very interesting. I don't love the way that the playoffs are set up this year as they are. Anyway, I hate that Minnesota and St. Louis have to face each other in the first round. That doesn't seem right because those are your top teams that you want to see toward the end. But who I don't run the ship there. I do. I think.
Yeah, come on, Gary Bettman.
I know exactly. I mean, it's a revenue driver, which sports at the end of the day are focused on revenue. So that would be it. Also, though, I am hard on, if you're not good enough to make the cut. 8 teams is already an excessive amount, right? that's already a lot of teams. So especially when there are only 32 in the league, that right. It's well, if you're not good enough to get there, then what are you doing? So I could take it or leave it. I wouldn't hate if they adopted it because, again, it seems to work for the NBA. The Timberwolves have that to thank, right? Although maybe considering the loss last night, I know you're number one Timberwolves fan.
You didn't have to do that. You already threw shade at them in your Beauts breakdown after the Canucks game, which hurt my feelings while I was editing it, and then after I watched it again once it was posted. But no, to your point, I think the cool thing, you're talking about the NBA and the Wolves making it to playoffs because of a play-in game. The Wolves are a very average team, right? So you look at a team like teams in the NHL who would fall under that category of bubble teams, average teams. But the thing about the NHL, which I think is unique to a lot of sports, especially to the NBA, if you want to make that comparison specifically, is that it seems like any season, any team can win once you get into the playoffs. It really has that feel like it doesn't matter who you are, how good of a season you've had, how hard of a season you've had, what your record was down the stretch, who your matchup is. It feels like any team can win. And I think that's what a lot of sports fans in general love about the NHL playoffs, is that it's not set in stone who's going to go win that Stanley Cup when day one of the playoffs start. Whereas in other sports, it sometimes feels that way. It's an easier path for some of these teams. So I think if you love that competition when it comes to the NHL playoffs and you want to see more teams involved in that competition, then hey, I have no problem, I guess, with the play-in game. But to your point, Jesse, if you can't be in the top 8 teams when all is said and done, maybe you don't deserve that chance. So we'll see. It's interesting. It's been a hot topic this week for sure.
I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. Probably not going to happen, but it's fun to talk about. And I loved hearing Bruce joke about it. Although he did say if they were in the playoffs, he wouldn't want to play in game. He's like, we were in that 3rd spot. I wouldn't want to play a game then.
Yeah.
So it's really only it's going to benefit you.